Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. The Coca-Cola 600. It's the longest race that we run at on the schedule. On a weekend where we honor the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice serving in our military, we also race 600 miles of remembrance for them and also wanting to capture a crown jewel. And this weekend we had everything. And for someone that was there, I saw it all. Mother Nature on Sunday, postponement to Monday, Mother Nature affecting the race early on, but we also saw great racing, a dramatic moment between two drivers that have had a history, and one driver break a long winless streak and getting back to victory lane. Let's get into all that went down in the Coke 600. Number 1, Ryan Blaney breaks the winless streak and finally gets back to victory lane, as yesterday he captured the Coca-Cola 600, holding off William Byron, Martin Truex Jr., Bubba Wallace, and Tyler Reddick for the victory. It's been 59 races since this kid was in victory lane at the night race at Daytona in August of 2021. And at that time, Blaney had already had a multi-winning season. Last year, he didn't win a single points-paying race, with the lone exception being the All-Star race at Texas, which was a dramatic one for him because he had a controversial moment with the window net, but they let him keep his spot and let him tether back up and keep his spot, and he was able to win the race. I mean, it's an All-Star race, come on. But entering this race, Ryan Blaney had not been to victory lane since that night race at Daytona. He's had some really good race cars this year, but some of the races he was never able to put together as far as putting together a chance to win some races. He has come close again a few times. I mean, Phoenix earlier this year, he had a really good race car, but just could never get by those Hendrick cars of William Byron and Kyle Larson for the victory. But this weekend, he put it all together. Right from the get-go, starting in 8th place, Ryan Blaney's car was a rocket ship. He was so competitive, so strong in the early stages of the race. Even when the sun was out or behind the clouds for the most part, he had a good race car, particularly when it came to the long runs. Short runs, he had to take a couple laps of his car to get up to speed before he could get going. But as the track began to cool down, nobody had anything for that 12 car. He was just flat out dominant. So strong that he could pull out to at least a 1.5 to 2 second lead, and he could continue to keep extending the gap after 10 to 15 laps into a run. Nobody could run him down. No matter who was in 2nd or 3rd place, they tried, but that 12 car just kept disappearing off into the distance. Even when we had some cautions, even when we had some restarts, he still found a way to get himself to the front. Now, one of the late cautions, he pitted with everybody else under yellow, and he lost the lead and slipped back to 4th. And I'm like, in the track position, losing Joe's track position, can you fight your way back to the front of your Ryan Blaney? He was able to do that. And on the next to last restart of the race, he got by the 24 car William Byron coming off of turn 2 while a wreck happened right behind him. And Blaney was ahead at the moment of the last scoring loop. And that put him in the catbird seat on the restart to take control. And he just fired it off going into turn 1 and just drove away from the entire pack. And was able to bring home the checkered flag. His first ever crown jewel event, again, breaking the winless streak, and also getting his crew chief, Jonathan Hassler, who joined him last year as the crew chief, replacing Todd Gordon. It got Jonathan Hassler his first win as a Cup Series crew chief. Always a very cool moment. But the other cool moment about yesterday for Ryan Blaney was also the ceremonial victory lap he did after the checkered flag flew. He stopped in the middle of turn 1-2 banking and then went back up the track and did kind of a Alan Kulwicki Polish victory lap by driving the car in the wrong direction and waving to the fans, honoring them and thanking them all for coming to the race and watching that race yesterday. And then he goes onto the front stretch, parks his car on the front stretch, and then he climbs out of the car and did the same thing that Team Penske driver Joseph Newgarden in the IndyCar Series did when he won the Indy 500 on Sunday. Went right into the crowd to celebrate with the fans. And Blaney normally likes to give a little kid the checkered flag that waved over his head when he won the race. Whenever Blaney wins a race, he asks the official for a checkered flag and then asks for a little fan to come here, and I want you to have this checkered flag. It's always a good bonding moment between a fan and a driver. That's why Blaney is one of the most well-liked drivers in the sport today, and currently is. And now that he's officially in the playoffs, can he win some more races? Can he be a true contender? I do believe that Blaney is such an underrated race car driver that if he can get some wins and get some consistency, he could be very dangerous. He could be a possible dark horse championship contender. I have no doubt in my mind. We know that Ford has struggled lately. His teammate Joey Logano has opened up about it, but this weekend, Ford in particular, when it came to the 12 car and a few other Ford drivers, they brought their A game, and again, the 12 car, just an absolute rocket ship yesterday, and I'm so happy for Ryan Blaney to get into victory lane. Can he build off this consistency after this big win yesterday? That remains to be seen. But for the moment, Ryan Blaney is back in the playoffs. Remember, he made playoffs last year as the only driver to not win a race. We had 15 guys make the playoffs last year, and he was the lone driver to make it in that did not have a win. He beat out Martin Truex Jr., a former Cup champion, to get in the playoffs. And he made it all the way to the round of 8. But ultimately, without the win and not a lot of bonus points on his side, he was not able to make it to the championship 4. He's been close at times. Is this year, with this win, the opportunity of a lifetime for Blaney to get in that conversation to make it to the championship for Phoenix? Because he's so good there. He, for crying out loud, nearly won the finale last year when his teammate won the championship. He was upset that, he thought, let me win the race and you finish in second and you can still win the championship. That never happened, obviously. But regardless, Ryan Blaney, he's in the playoffs with this win, and now we're going to see how he and this team fare out for the rest of this regular season until we get ready to start the playoffs in early September. But congrats once again to Ryan Blaney and the 12 team on a dominant performance in the 600 yesterday. Number 2, drama and chaos between two rivals. And I'm talking about Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. We all know, other than the win yesterday from Ryan Blaney, this was the main talking point. Now, news just broke down a couple hours ago about what happened in Inson, but let's get into what happened. So on a restart, a couple laps after we got the race restarted from the weather delay, Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott were side by side off of turn 2 on a restart, and Hamlin kept pushing Elliott up the racetrack because Hamlin's car was in the middle, and when you're in the middle, there's obviously not a lot of air that can help your car. It's the dirty air, and it really affects the balance. And then a couple laps later, off of turn number 4, Hamlin goes up the track and squeezes Elliott into the outside wall. And Elliott, after bouncing off of it, comes down the track and actually gets into the right rear of the 11, turning him around and turning him head on the outside wall, and also damaging Elliott's car in the process. Both were knocked out of the Coca-Cola 600, and both were, shall I say, had very interesting comments. Denny Hamlin said that move should have him suspended from next weekend's race. Chase Elliott, he said the politically correct answer, which was, after I hit the wall, these cars are just so sensitive that when you hit the wall, you can hardly drive them, and it's like you lose control of the race car. He is not wrong about that. But obviously there were onboard cameras that showed that the 9 kind of came down the racetrack. But there's also an onboard camera from the guy behind him in Brad Keselowski, and it looked like the 6 car kind of maybe bumped into the 9 car before he turned the 11 car. But there's obviously many people out there that agree to disagree for the most part. But that ultimately knocked both of them out of the race yesterday. Both of them were not really winning race cars. Both of them did lead some laps yesterday, but for the most part, they were not on par to some other guys like the 12 car of Ryan Blaney or some of the other Toyotas or some of the Chevys that we had running up at the front. But unfortunately, it knocked 2 stars out of the race. And just a few hours ago, NASCAR dropped the hammer and announced that Chase Elliott will not be racing next weekend at Gateway Motorsports Park. They have suspended him for this one race because of what he did yesterday on the racetrack. Again, obviously, NASCAR set the standard because the reason why is what Bubba Wallace did to Kyle Larson at that Las Vegas race last year, where Bubba Wallace got bounced into the outside wall because Larson drifted up the track, not on purpose. It was by accident because of the dirty air. It squeezed Bubba into the outside wall, and he came ripping down the track and turned the 5 car hard right into the outside wall, and also took out a guy who was part of the playoffs at the time, and Christopher Bell. Now, Bell obviously was able to win a few races later at Martinsville and make the championship 4. But that action got Bubba Wallace a 1-race suspension from not competing the following weekend's race at Homestead, Miami. John Hunter Nemechek was the replacement driver at the time. Bubba did come back at Martinsville and ran the rest of the season, but obviously that was a big talking point and led a lot of NASCAR fans and officials to believe that there should be more standards set regarding the code of conduct on the racetrack and protecting the other competitors when there is retaliation on the racing surface. Now, from what the angle shows of the incident yesterday, Denny Hamlin didn't mean to get into the 9 car off of 4. His car just pushed up the racetrack because you're in the dirty air. But from the Elliott perspective, he basically was saying, I've had enough of you, because how many times has Denny Hamlin gotten into something with Chase Elliott that Chase didn't start? It was Denny that started it. Think back to the 2017 fall race at Martinsville. Elliott's probably on his way to his first Career Cup win. Nope. Denny Hamlin dumps him into turn 3, takes him out of contention, and Elliott was not happy about that. They made contact a few races later at Phoenix, but Elliott just brushed the 11 car on the outside wall. It wasn't like a total dump you into the wall thing. He just brushed him into the wall, and Hamlin ultimately wrecked out of that race. And then 1 year later at Phoenix, when it was a must-win for Chase Elliott at the time to get into the championship four, and Hamlin had been eliminated, they made contact on the racetrack, and Elliott unfortunately got knocked into the pack and got collected with drivers like Kurt Busch and took both of them out of a chance to make it to the championship four. And then both of them did the same thing again the following year when Elliott was in a must-win, and so was Denny Hamlin. I mean, these guys do not like each other. Particularly, the Hendrick guys do not get along with Denny Hamlin, the 11 car. Now, obviously, was this the right decision? NASCAR felt it was in their mind, and of course, Vice President of Competition Director Elton Sawyer felt like they made the right decision by suspending the 9 car for actions instrumental onto the racetrack for yesterday's incident. But I would like to remind everybody, didn't Denny Hamlin blatantly come out on his podcast show earlier in the season and admit to kind of pushing Ross Chastain up the racing groove at the end of that Phoenix race, the one where they both had old tires and everyone behind them was catching them on fresh tires in the late laps of that race and those late race restarts? Wasn't he the one that said, if I'm going backwards, I'm taking you with me? And NASCAR penalized Denny Hamlin for that. I mean, and think back to also last year, Noah Gragson in an Xfinity race turned Sage Karam into the pack, and all Noah Gragson got was a couple points taken away. He didn't get suspended. It's tough, obviously. It's tough to discuss a situation like this after what happened with the Bubba Wallace-Kyle Larson incident. But they set the standards. Chase Elliott will not be participating in this weekend's race. Corey LaJoie instead of driving his normal 7 car for Spire Motorsports, he will get the opportunity to drive the 9 car next weekend, while Carson Hocevar will make his Cup debut this weekend in the number 7 for Corey LaJoie. Now, NASCAR said that they're not going to take away Elliott's playoff waiver, because remember, he's missed 6 races with the leg injury he sustained earlier this year. Elliott will probably still have a chance to make it into the playoffs, but now he's going to have to win, because that wreck yesterday pretty much took him out of the conversation that he could point his way in, because he was doing a great job getting a maximum amount of points and averaging the points that we think he needed to do to get into the playoffs in case he didn't win. But now it's a must-win for Chase Elliott. Do I think he can do it? I think he can. And with a lot of road courses coming up, you better believe he'll be in the conversation. But what happened yesterday was kind of a black mark on the sport, and it was kind of a black mark on Chase Elliott. But it's also a black mark on Denny Hamlin because, dude, you've done it to other people as well. And no offense, that's kind of what we call being hypocritical right there. So it was a dramatic moment yesterday. Other than the Blaney win, everyone's talking about Elliott versus Denny Hamlin once again. Number 3, William Byron. Strong all day, strong on pit road, but comes up short of a crown jewel. William Byron started this race on the pole because qualifying and practice were rained out because of the rain cell that we had the entire weekend. That forced everything to be run yesterday, on Monday, on Memorial Day. Thankfully, it was a holiday, though. But William Byron, because of the win a few weeks ago at Darlington, started on the pole for this race. From the beginning, strong race car, but then slipped back because it seemed like long runs were not really their best friend. Short runs were their best friend. But what really helped keep William Byron in the top 5-7 the entire race yesterday was his pit crew. Having that first pit box at the exit of pit road where you can get a quicker launch than everybody else behind you, he was able, most of those pit stops under yellow, to get out front the first car. That's what kept him in the game the entire day yesterday. I know we can talk about Blaney and his car yesterday. They were very, very strong. But that 24 pit crew, William Byron, on pit road, round of applause. You guys had phenomenal pit stops yesterday. You guys did a great job keeping your driver up at the front, competing with whoever was up there regarding the Ford camp or the Toyota camp. They have arguably been the best driver at Hendrick Motorsports this year. They were the best Hendrick car in general yesterday. Even though sometimes late in the race, Kyle Larson, who struggled early on, rallied late and seemed to be in contention to have a chance for the win, the 24 car was undisputably the best Hendrick car yesterday, and undisputably he was the best Chevy car yesterday. I never saw the Trackhouse cars get up there at all yesterday. There were a couple of times that the RCR guys, we'll talk about one of them a little bit later. I mean, we saw Ricky Stenhouse Jr. up there, but Byron was the best Chevy driver yesterday. And what has been a strong, consistent year for this team. They're just continuing to build good runs and momentum leading up to these playoffs, which will kick off later in the year in September. And I can guarantee you, they can keep this momentum up. William Byron's got to be in the top 5 conversation of the drivers right now that has a good chance to be a title contender come Phoenix. So good job by the 24 team yesterday. It just didn't have enough for that 12 car, especially when the track cooled down and we had those long runs. But nice job nonetheless by William Byron and the 24 team. Number 4, Toyotas. So strong yesterday. A lot of them had the really, really good speed, but a lot of them fell short yesterday. Let's start off first with Christopher Bell, who early in the race looked like he was going to be the guy to beat. He had a great race car. He was up front competing with Byron and Blaney in most of stage 1 and nearly got William Byron at the start-finish line for the stage 1 victory, but came up just a few inches short. Stage 2, he was still up front, but slipped back a few spots, but was still in the game the entire time. Then we come to stage 3. In the first 30 laps of the third stage, Bell gets loose off of turn 4 and spins around. And once he got back in that traffic, he never really recovered whatsoever. He had a moment where he hit the wall. At that one point, he actually did get back inside the top 10, but he was part of the last caution when Kyle Larson got loose off of turn 2 and came down and collected the 20 car, ultimately taking Bell out of a good chance to get a good finish. But the car was strong yesterday. He brought his A game, not just himself, but his other Toyota partners as well. Martin Truex Jr., really good race car, 2-time winner of this race. It looked like at times he might have been the guy to beat. Even though he never really got out front and dominated like some of the other guys did, he was in the game all day long. Even a couple times when he got stuck back in traffic, he fought his way back to the front. Despite a few penalties, he had good speed in that race car. But once again, just not enough to compete with that 12 car special on long runs. Ultimately coming away with a third place finish. Truex has still had some really good momentum lately ever since he won that Dover race. Then we go to 2311 Racing, both of them coming off impressive runs at the All-Star race last weekend. Bubba Wallace 4th and Tyler Reddick 5th. Tyler Reddick, let's start off with him first of all. Really good race car. And by the way, love that baby blue Air Jordan paint scheme yesterday, honoring, of course, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where MJ went to college, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. I'm not a big basketball history guy, but MJ having his logo on your card, you got to give your best to the boss man. And Reddick gave his best yesterday. He was a good race car. In stage 2, and particularly stage 3, it looked like he was going to be the guy because whoever was up front had a chance yesterday. They had the clean air, and they had made the right adjustments to get themselves in contention for the victory. Reddick certainly had that yesterday, but by the time the final stage rolled around, there was a few moments where he started to have a couple of moments. He had one big slide off of turn 4, which I don't know how in the world he saved that race car. And then a couple of laps later, he brushed the wall, and that might have made the car a little too tight for him to get back up there and contend at the very end of the race. I think he had a car that was pretty on par with the 12 car when it came to the late stages of the race as the track continued to cool down. But after that spin and the contact with the wall, it really kind of hurt him. But he was able to come away with a 5th place finish nonetheless. Then we go to Bubba Wallace. Boy, he had a roller coaster of a day yesterday. He had a pit stop where he got sent to the rear, or like lost a lot of his track position because he was interfered in the pit box in front of him with Michael McDowell. Then at one point of the racetrack, he made contact with the 10 car of Eric Almirola. And Almirola came on the radio and he said that the reason why he's doing it because Bubba was flipping him off and cursing at him. And they both had a discussion on pit road and they were obviously disagreeing about it. And Almirola shoved Bubba Wallace. Bubba called Eric Almirola Two-Face. Yeah, no offense, Bubba, but Eric Almirola is one of the nicest guys in the garage. That's not one to call somebody Two-Face that is well-liked in the garage. Sure, the guy has not really had the best year so far, but he's still one of the most likable, respectable, and nicest drivers in the garage area. You can be a little polarizing, dude. But even with all those slow pit stops they had late in the race, and boy, they had the speed in that car. If they didn't have that, we could have been talking about Bubba racing his best friend for the victory. But ultimately, they were able to rally from those issues and get him away with a 4th place finish, which is still progress for him. That's now, if my memory serves me right, that's 3 top 5s for Bubba Wallace. The Kansas race, the Darlington race, and this race. He's at 3 top 5s in a row. That's the first time it's ever happened to him in his career. They're getting consistent. They just got to eliminate the mistakes on pit road and they can win a race. It's pit road, like Denny Hamlin, that holds Bubba back an opportunity to win a race. If they can eliminate the mistakes, they can be a contender for race victories. But despite all that, a great rally to get a fourth place finish. And also shout out to Ty Gibbs. That dude had to run almost 900 miles yesterday because we ran the Xfinity race that he was a part of. And of course, we started early on, delayed it, and saved the rest of it until after the 600 was complete. But Ty Gibbs had a good race car yesterday. Nothing like Truex or Bell or Reddick or Bubba when they had the drive business, but he was solidly in the top 10 for the most part. Then he got in the top 5 late in the race, and it seemed like maybe if things went his way, he could be in contention. But like Christopher Bell, he was part of that late race restart. The last crash of the race when Larson got loose off a 2, hit the 20 car, and collected the 22 and the 54 in the process. It definitely sucked because the kid was doing a really, really good job for his first ever Coca-Cola 600. But I think he learned some things. And say what you want about the kid, he could be driving a little over his head, and in my opinion, he's not the second coming of Jesus, I can tell you that. But the kid has run smarter this year, unlike some of the times where he maybe drove over his head last year while being too aggressive. He has been aggressive at times this year, but not as aggressive as he was when you saw him in the Xfinity Series last year. I think he's learned from that and maturing a little bit. Can that carry on going forward? Time will tell. But despite all that, the Toyotas had the speed yesterday, but they didn't really have the luck to go along with it. And number 5, long weekend of racing. I mean, again, I was at the race this weekend. I'll have a vlog up later this weekend about my experience at the race, but oh my goodness gracious. From all the rain delays and everything, and then having to come in yesterday at 3 p.m., but I was finally able to witness a really good Coca-Cola 600. I'm going to say this. The Coca-Cola 600 and the next-gen car, perfect. This next-gen car has saved mile-and-a-half races. I know I've said that many, many times, but this car, particularly for this race, is so much fun. We had so much parity yesterday. We didn't just have one dominant guy. Yes, I know when you look at the lead laps led, Blaney led everything, but he was up front. Byron was up front. Bell was up front. Reddick was up front. Kevin Harvick in his final Coca-Cola 600 was up front at times. Denny Hamlin until the incident in the end of stage number 2. We saw Joey Logano get there at times, but he slept back because his car wasn't really good on long runs. We had Stenhouse Jr. in the top 10. We had Ty Gibbs up there. We even had Kyle Larson go from back to the front. We had Alex Bowman come back after suffering the vertebrae injury a few weeks ago in a sprint car. He ran well and came away with a 12th place finish. Heck, Zane Smith, driving for Front Row Motorsports in the races he's in the 38 car this year, he ran top 15 a lot yesterday and came away with a 10th place finish. This kid is doing a great job, and I think is earning himself an opportunity to get to the Cup Series full-time down the road. I thought he would be a contender for the 4 car, but the rumors are that somebody else, which I think we all know based on who he's part of in the development program, is going to be the guy replacing Kevin Harvick next year. But we said so much parity yesterday, and we had a lot of cautions. Obviously, we had 18 cautions last year. We had 16 this year. The big moments, obviously, the Elliott Hamlin incident, but we had one moment where all 3 of the Legacy Motor Club cars ran into issues. Jimmy Johnson ran the race and spun off a turn 2, hitting the outside wall. And under that time, both his teammates Eric Jones and Noah Gragson both went to the garage with radiator problems. Johnson came back late in the race because they fixed the mechanical problem in the garage, but then he wrecked off a turn 2 after getting hit by his teammate Noah Gragson. Then second restart after the rain delay, Kyle Busch gets loose off of turn number 2 and gets hit in the door by Daniel Suarez. Kyle Busch went backwards because of what happened on the racetrack. That guy came back and nearly got in the top 5 contention at the very end of the race, and he ultimately finished inside the top 10. A great performance and rally by Kyle Busch. We all know how good Kyle Larson is at driving a race car, but I think we all still forget Kyle Busch. He can drive a race car as well, no matter the circumstances. We had Kevin Harvick getting into Tyler Reddick off of turn 4, the late laps of the final stage, taking Harvick out of contention to have a chance to win his 3rd and final Coca-Cola 600, which obviously will not happen. We had other instances. We had Cindric wrecking off of turn number 2. We had AJ Allmendinger and Harrison Burton had their moment late in the race off of turn number 4. And, of course, the last caution where Larson, Bell, Gibbs, and Logano off of turn 2 all had their incidents. It was just a chaotic, long race yesterday. Now I know why it's called the longest race of the year. But it was a fun race. Was it a wreck fest like the 2005, 2019, and last year's race? No, because some of the cautions were debris cautions or the weather. But there were some incidents where guys had been involved in. Some of them, though, were able to overcome that adversity. It was just a fun race yesterday. The Coke 600 is literally back at the top as one of the crown jewels of NASCAR because of this next-gen car. And we had great racing all of yesterday. I was just so honored and privileged to be at that race yesterday and witness that action. That was a lot of fun, and I look forward to the one next year. It's going to be a banger. So as I close out this video, obviously, this is a weekend where we honor and remember the men and women that gave the ultimate sacrifice fighting for our country and fighting for our freedoms. Memorial Day weekend, and to those that served and paid the ultimate sacrifice, we will never forget you, and we will honor you and what you did fighting for our country. So from the bottom of my heart, I honor you, and I will remember all your memories. It was just a long weekend once again, but a blast at the Coca-Cola 600. Now we're off to Gateway, where last year we saw controversy between 3 drivers. Chastain getting into it with Hamlin and Elliott on 2 separate occasions. But then we had a good battle at the end of the race between Joey Logano and Kyle Busch, both racing one another, and Logano coming away with the victory. Will we see another close battle this time around when we go there? How will some drivers fare regarding the adversity they face at the 600 and rebound this upcoming weekend? Can Corey LaJoie take an opportunity in this one race that he's filling in while Chase Elliott sits out to have a chance to prove himself? We shall see. It shall be quite a race next weekend at Gateway Motorsports Park. But I hope you all had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I hope you have a great rest of your week leading up into this weekend's race. So subscribe, like, congrats once again to Ryan Blaney and the 12 team on their very impressive performance at the Coca-Cola 600, winning yesterday's race and breaking the long-awaited 59 race winless streak. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everybody. God bless you. God bless America. And let's go racing.